Hey and welcome! This is the Kuretake Gansai Tambi Art Nouveau set. It was sent to me for free by Kuretake. One of the sketchbooks I am currently using is the Uhuhu Mixed Media Pad. I bought it last year, but I haven't spent a lot of time with it yet. I'd like to talk about references and how I use them in this video, but at a later point. I think it will make a little more sense once the sketch is further along. I start with a very rough sketch, then slowly define the face. At this point I just want to place the features somewhere to have something to work with. I placed the mouth and chin too far down, so I will draw over it and hopefully place them in the right position this time. Once I am happy, I roll my eraser over it. The lines are still there and can guide me, but they are light enough so it feels less messy, and I can pick and choose which lines I will continue to work on and which I will abandon. These lines I will also slightly erase, and instead of the mechanical pencil I will use a regular pencil for the final lines. I prefer how the lines look with a regular pencil, but I don't want to bother with constantly sharpening it, so I use a mechanical pencil in the beginning for the rough sketching. Finalizing the lines is a slow process but very relaxing, so at this point I can turn off my brain. I don't make any big decisions and I can focus on making pretty lines. When I am finally happy with the face, I will softly go over it with my eraser to remove some of the excess graphite. I don't always start painting as soon as a fraction of the sketch is done, but sometimes I get impatient. It feels like I'm taking too long, and when that happens I don't bother finishing everything before I start painting. I'm working my sketchbook and it's supposed to be fun, so I will go with the flow and do whatever feels right in the moment. I start off by going over my lines. This is pretty much the point of no return to me. I can happily erase and draw the face over and over again, so this prevents me from doing it. I know that if I spend too much time on something, I can lose steam and abandon it completely. Again, this isn't my go-to process. Sometimes I will start off with the shadows, other times I will do a wash of color first. It really depends on my mood. Okay, so now that most of the lines are done, let's start talking about references. On pretty much every video I get asked about my references. Mostly it's about if I use them, and I do. I don't really talk about this because I always assume that everyone uses references and that for the most part we all probably do the same thing. We look at it and we draw it. Sometimes we try to replicate what we see, other times we take it more as an inspiration. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe there is so much curiosity about it because everybody thinks like I do, that it's not super interesting, and because we all do the same thing, we don't talk about it as much. For me, it all started with this. This was my inspiration. As you can see, there isn't a whole lot in my sketch that might indicate that this movie still was my inspiration. And I think that's also one of the reasons I don't talk a lot about references, because I don't use just one reference. I pick and choose from a bunch of references. Sometimes I pin them on my Pinterest, other times I forget to do it and then I refresh the page. I lose the reference and I move on. So it's not always easy to keep track of that and have a bunch of references saved that I can point to and say, this is what I used. But for this one, I made sure to save them all. So I had my inspiration. I like the idea of woman standing next to door. I also like the look of this old movie. I'm currently in the midst of another nostalgia wave. I pin a lot of photographs from old fashion magazines because I like the look of these photos. They almost look like illustrations. And that's how I found the second reference, the hair. At this point, there is a theme emerging in my head. Old spooky movies, women in nightgowns wander the halls. Nightgown for reference. This isn't really a nightgown, I think. It looks more like a dress, but it will do. I take what I want and make up what I need. I also like the floral wallpaper from the inspirational reference, but there was a lot going on and I was lazy. I didn't want to invest a lot of time into the background of the sketch, so this is my wallpaper reference. There were also lots of other things I pinned while working on this, not with the intention to actually use them, but because they spoke to me in the moment. Maybe they will inspire me to do something else in the future, especially this one. I love how she holds the phone. Her hands are perfect, and I'm sure I will use this for something eventually. This was a little glimpse into my thinking process. I tried to be very mindful of what I was thinking, which references I used. It's not always the same process, so sometimes I use only 2 or 3 references. Sometimes I use a whole lot more and jump from one to the other. There are of course also times when I stick a lot more closely to only one reference, but the downside to that is that I end up comparing my drawing a lot more to the photograph. It's a more frustrating process to me because I can't lose myself and zone out when I try to copy something and get it right. I have to be a lot more focused. And I definitely have to be in the right mindset to use a reference like that. That is something that I do mostly on the iPad when I prepare a line art. For me, it's a lot easier to get it right digitally, but that's a whole different topic. And yeah, this is pretty much it. I hope this was useful or entertaining, and I see you next one. Bye!